is a socio-cultural history. It's a call to action from someone who has experienced polar opposites of the city of Baltimore. Watkins offers up personal experiences and experiences from people from those parts of Baltimore that face daily struggles with police brutality, law enforcement, and the drug trade. And the city, he also explains how it exploded basically after the killing and death of Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, and Baltimore's own Freddie Gray. The book includes true dispatches from the quote-unquote other side of America. Watkins has been published in Salon, the New York Times, the Huffington Post, and others. He's been featured on Meet the Press and has been a recurring guest on CNN, NPR's Monday Morning, The Mark Steiner Show, and others. He is a professor at the University of Baltimore and has received awards such as Baltimore Magazine's Best Writer Award of 2015 and the Baltimore Business Journal's 40 Under 40 list. At this time, please help me welcome D. Watkins.
It's a nice crowd. Can we get one more for yourselves, please? A round of applause for yourselves. It's a cold night. I've done a lot of these talks, and I can't even front. This is like, I've never felt this comfortable before. It's like I'm in like I'm not, I'm in like it's like a living room. It's like, like, I'm not the shortest guy, so I'm normally like talking over a mic. It's just like right here. I understand the true functions now, so this is nice. The B-side. It's a few different things for a few different people, but I think the response has been great. I'm honored that people like it and they want to read more, and they've been reaching out, and I think I've achieved a lot of things that I set out to do, which was, one, I wanted to create a book that spoke directly to the people where I come from, right? When I was coming up, no one had a love for reading. Reading was like an alien thing to us. Why would you ever want to read a book? It seemed ridiculous. And the reason why, in my opinion, is the content. So I'm from East Baltimore, originally Lafayette Housing Projects before I moved to Ashland Avenue, and the books we read in school was Mark Twain, right? Huckleberry Finn. Tom Sawyer, books like that. And now that I'm a writer and I work with young people and I understand all different types of levels of storytelling and things like that, I get why they recommend those books. But as a kid, if you're living in a building where people your age are making thousands of dollars a week, their dirt bikes being ridden through your lobby, shootouts and all types of wild people. You're coming across these people every day, and then you walk across the street to the school, and they say, let's talk about Huckleberry Finn. You're like, what? Huckleberry Finn? He doesn't have Air Jordans. He doesn't have shoes. Like, he's running around painting gates. He's not making money. His whole journey didn't speak to anyone, where we came from, and a lot of our teachers didn't really do a good enough job at making those connections. Fast forward, when I became a college professor, and I would ask my students, this is composition classes, English 101. They would come in the first day, and I would say, what are you guys reading? It's not strange that everyone would say nothing. It's the same thing. What books did you read in high school? Ben Carson has a gifted hands. Those books just don't really play well. So I wanted to create a book that was contemporary, right? A book that kind of spoke to a lot of young people who don't love reading, non-traditional readers, the people who my publishing company don't really cater or market to, and it's worked. These books, they do really well in high school. A lot of the essays I publish, they go viral in high school and middle schools, and it's working. So a lot of people who normally don't pick up books, they're picking up books now. So I'm proud to accomplish that. And from the other side of the spectrum, I wanted to create a project where the people who are far removed from places like Ferguson, places like Baltimore, places like, you know, Staten Island. The people who don't know anything about these places and all they get is the small glimpse that the media shows you, you know, the humanity's lost. So I wanted to deliver that glimpse of humanity. I wanted people to know that, you know, okay, you saw the kid, unarmed kid gets murdered, but I want you to know that that kid was a person. That kid had family members. That kid had people who loved him. That kid, you know, he or she had ambitions. They, you know, they wanted to be things in life. They wanted to graduate college, or they wanted to make money. They wanted to, you know, the same things that we all want, right? But we don't really get that. We just get, you know, cop sees a black guy, gets scared, guns him down, you know, people march and protest, cop goes free. But we forget about the humanity of that young person that lost their lives. These are people dying. These are family experiencing wild amounts of trauma. And I think they don't get their just due in the media. A lot of people who don't really have a lot of experiences, you know, with these areas, or black people in general, they just, they look at it, they ride past, or they look at it like B-roll footage from, you know, some news story. So I wanted to deliver that humanity, and I tried my best to do that. So I want, you know, I want to talk about some of these issues a little more, and I want to, you know, I want to read some of it and talk about where some of the energy, you know, from some of these essays came from. One night, I participated in a peaceful protest near downtown Baltimore. My fellow protesters and I were standing in solidarity with the citizens of Ferguson, Missouri, over the murder of Mike Brown, an innocent African-American teen who was on his way to college when he was cut down by a policeman's bullets. It felt good to unite with so many different people for the same cause, a diverse group with handmade signs and a shared sense of outrage. But even as we shouted for justice, I knew it wasn't enough for my experiences in rallying for the Gen 6 and Trayvon Martin. I do have an immense amount of respect for protesters, marchers, and organizers, but in the end, after all that chanting and marching, Darren Wilson, the cop who murdered Brown, still went free. And cops in America still feel comfortable killing innocent black people. Every time a black body falls in the hands of a rogue cop, the same protests erupt on one side, and the same naive voices echo the same nonsense on the other. Well, if they were innocent, why did they run? Why did they attack an officer? Why didn't they obey? I get where those confused voices come from. In a perfect world, innocent people should not have to run or protect themselves from the ones responsible for protecting them. However, America's far from perfect, and African Americans are about as safe as a chunk of steak in a den full of starving lions. It doesn't matter if you stay or fight back or run, because either way, they'll murder you. Freddie Gray in Baltimore ran, and when they caught him, he was murdered. Walter Scott in South Carolina ran, and he was murdered too. Oscar Grant in Oakland was face down on the ground with the cuffs on, and they murdered him. John Crawford in Dayton was minding his own business, shopping at Walmart, holding one of the store's BB guns, and an officer opened fire within seconds of interacting with him. Mike Brown in Ferguson, who we were rallying for that day in Baltimore, put his hands up, and the cops blew holes through them. Sean Bell in New York was just trying to get married, and police killed him. Eric Garner in Staten Island pleaded for his life after he was in custody on video in public, broad daylight, and they killed him. Irvin Edwards, mentally ill and partially deaf, had his hands hanging low, so police tasered him to death while he was in custody. Jonathan Farrell in North Carolina wanted some help because he was in a car accident. Cops shot him to death as he reached out for assistance. Tamir Rice in Cleveland was only 12. Being a kid can't save you because he was gunned down too. Thaddeus McCurry in St. Louis was killed because he had a knife and a Bible. Rakia Boyd in Chicago was killed by an off-duty cop who fired into a dark alley. Ramali Graham in New York tried to run into his home and they got him. Katherine Johnson, a 92-year-old woman in Atlanta, was relaxing in her home and police stampeded them like cowboys and murdered her. Akel Garley in Brooklyn just happened to be in the stairwell minding his own business with no weapon and was killed for that. You could be from Africa like Amadou Diallo in New York, or known as a nice guy around Baltimore City like Tyrone West or Anthony Anderson, It doesn't matter. No black person is safe. Kids, grannies, city workers, hustlers, church boys, cops, prom queens, junkies, whatever. They'll murder you. These killings happen almost every day in America. So much that the newspaper should print a daily death count with photos of the casualties like they do during wartime. Because for many of us in America, this is wartime. What's disgusting is that nearly all of the officers who commit these heinous acts are found innocent. Many aren't even charged due to the various versions of the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights that exist in every state. In Maryland, where I live, police officers get 10 days before they even have to speak about the killings they're involved in, giving them ample time to assemble the numbers of lies that normally get them off. The Guardian recently reported that police will kill blacks this year at twice the rate of whites, and that's the norm. So that's a piece of the introduction, and I think about this because I think about these issues a lot. I think about what's my role, or what can I do to help in these types of situations. And like I said, I have a tremendous amount of respect for people who march and chant and sing and things like that. But at the same time, that's not the only way. I feel like reading transformed me. No one singing or inviting me to like a group to to walk up and down the street. That didn't really have an effect on me, but reading did. And I think everyone has a role, and as people, we have to figure out what we can do, right? The skills that we have and the skills that we can share, and we had to work at it really hard until we achieve mastery, and then share them with other people. I have a friend, and he's a great guy. Locally, he makes the news a lot because he goes to all these marches and protests, and I know him for a long time. And he wants to do something, and sometimes he tries to get me involved. And the energy that helped me create this kind of made me think about some of the conversations that we had. Because even not too long ago, one day he called me up. And he said, "Hey man, what you doing today?" And I was like, "Nothing, man. Just eating some cereal." I was in the crib, trying to relax and everything. And he said, "All right, good. Well, wear all black and meet me on North Avenue, 15 minutes." I said, "Whoa, like what's going on?" Like, wear all black and meet you on North Avenue. I said, "What's up, man?" He said, "Well, they building a new jail for kids. And we're gonna rally against it. We're gonna lie down in traffic." So I said, "Hold up, what?" And a little backstory: they are building a new jail in Baltimore City for young people, and obviously I'm against the jail. And I was trying to explain to him that they're building a jail because they're locking so many children up that they're forcing the overflow to have to house with adults. So kids are like 14 years old with dudes that are like 35, murderers and everything. And no, I don't want the jail. I want us to be able to figure out a way to keep the young people out of jail altogether, because it doesn't really make any sense. And I was saying, I'm against the jail, but I'm not landing traffic. So he's like, "Why? Like, you like this is what we're here to do." So I'm gonna hang up so you can get ready. We have our black. I'll see you in 10 minutes. Now it's 10 minutes. So he hangs up, and I call him back, and I say, "I'm not coming." He said, "Why?" I said, "Well, think about it. I'm a college professor, right? Not the richest, professor in the world, but it's a career. I can, I have some flexibility. So if I'm driving down the street and I see a whole bunch of people laying in traffic, I can just pull out my phone and go to Blackboard, right, and type in, hey guys, I wanted to come to class today to teach you, but I'm stuck in traffic. So I want you to read chapters 1 through 5 and leave a comment, and then leave a comment on everybody else's comment, right? I can say something ridiculous like that, and then I can just sit back and go on with my day. But what if I'm driving down the street and I work for like a place like Walmart, right? And I call my manager and I say, "Look, the one highway that I need to get to your job is being blocked off by protesters. I can't make it in today." the manager might fire me. They might give me a strike. They might cancel my raise or bonus or something like that. I might be out of a job. You know, so I said, lying down in traffic doesn't hurt oppressors. It doesn't really hurt rich people. Rich people are not in a rush. And if they're in the top 1%, they might run you over and get away from it. Affluenza, I didn't know. You know, I didn't know what I did was wrong. So, you know, so I think about that, and I think about all of these different ways and how collectively we can all work together to combat some of these issues. So my thing is literacy and getting people excited about telling their own stories and helping to create journalists from the outside. You know, people from the inside that look out versus, you know, it always being the outside looking in. And I've had, you know, some success, and I'm happy with that. I know another person that does financial literacy. All right, once you make some money, they teach you, you know, what to do with it, how to flip and save it and all that. And then I know another person that does nutrition, right? I don't think about nutrition and food, but you know, he has a girlfriend and they have like ab muscles, and they're in the park doing pull-ups and burpees and all that. Like, and it's a different way of being. You're an activist, but you're sharing skills and life lessons that people need. And you don't have to be on the TV screen. You don't have to be all loud and making all types of noise, and you can work within your community. You could do groundwork, you know, grassroots stuff, and really make a difference. So I try my best to focus on that wave. How can I share a skill? And a lot of people ask me when I do these talks, they say, well, you know, what can I do? I was in, somewhere at a university. And there's so many of them. I was at a school, and there was a woman in the audience, and she said, I hear what you're saying about skill sharing and everything, but I don't really know what I can do. I don't know my place. I'm just a white woman from Seattle with a big heart. All right? This is how she identified. You know, I'm thinking, we're the ones with the small hearts, right? And she said, but I'm a professional photographer. I took amazing pictures of the Baltimore uprising. I had them published. I took pictures in Ferguson. I had them published. So I said, well, there you go. When you know how many people don't even know that you can have a career as a professional photographer? So instead of taking pictures of those kids while they go through pain, maybe pull one of them aside, show them about aperture and f-stops and all that, and how you make money as a photographer, how this is your job, and you just share the skill. You know, you just taught somebody, you know, you expose them to a different reality. Maybe you show them how to work a couple of functions. Maybe you snap some shots and email them to them, right? Small things. People don't want your handouts. They don't want your, you know. People don't want anything but opportunity and exposure. You know, if we can share skills and opportunity and exposure, we'll make a tremendous difference, and we'll add on to the legacy of revolutionaries and activists that helped us get this far. But it has to be, at some point, we have to figure out ways to expose people to more things outside of their neighborhoods and use the tools that we got to make things better. So it's one of the reasons, this whole concept kind of makes up the bulk of this book, because there's a lot of different things that I wasn't exposed to that, you know, that I learned in my later years. And I felt like I wanted to put them all in one place so that a lot of young people, or a lot of people in general, can understand where some of these issues come from. So there's major healthcare disparities. I write about it. There's, you know, why schools are the way they are, right? What happened in the history of our country that would allow a lot of our public schools to be, you know, to operate in the manner in which they do. So I wrote about it. Street harassment, street harassing women, right? Why do people street harass? Where did that culture come from? What is your role as a man in trying to combat that? How can you be an ally, right? You know, I wrote about it. It's something that rarely gets talked about, especially in my community. So I wanted to give a book of, I don't want to call them lessons, but just some insight from a first-person narrative on the journey that a lot of us go through in this country, in a way that's easy to read and digestible, and you know, sometimes it's really depressing, sometimes it's funny. It's like a mix. And just to give you like another example, I want to read a piece of the essay I wrote on food. Not going to read the whole thing, but you know, I talk about the digital divide. I talk about addiction to social media. I talk about black cops, right? You know, the role of black cops, and how, you know, what they go through and some of the things that they do. And then I also talk about black on black crime, and I talk about murder in general, you know, intercommunal crime, right? How America's segregated. So, you know, people in this country only really kill people that live next to them. The food, right? It's food. I had fun writing this one because, you know, all these years later, it's like I still really don't know what to eat. Like, it's so, like the other day someone told me Whole Foods was bad for you. I said, really? I said, damn, not even Whole Foods is sacred? Like, it's just crazy, right? Because the apples are like $6 a piece. And they all have like brand names like bags of weed, right? It's like Granny Smith Kush and all that. It's like, how can Whole Foods not be safe, right? So I'll read a piece of my essay on food. Lemon heads, now laters, flaming hot Cheetos, barbecue sunflower seeds, Boston baked beans, penny candies of every flavor, butterscotch cookies, butterscotch crumpets, Twinkies, Twix, Takis, and M&Ms. That's the menu my friends and I share every morning on the way to elementary, middle, and high school. And the reason why we all have meth mouth looking teeth with chipped up incisors and rotten molars. I'm sure there are probably millions of other city kids who start their day with the same diet the same way. Loads of sugar and some yellow dye number 5 mixed with a bunch of other unpronounceable chemicals, all conjoined and neatly packaged in eye-catching wrapping paper. Kids with money eat the same thing for lunch, while others are forced to eat the meals provided by the school, which wasn't much better in my day. And then there's soul food, microwavable poison, or Mickey D's for dinner. I don't remember anyone addressing how dangerous food could be to me as a kid back in the 90s and early 2000s. Curry-out spots like Moe's in downtown Baltimore that sold fat fried jumbo crab cakes catered my early teens when I thought I knew what good food was. My side items would be a biscuit, mashed potatoes, and a pile of vegetable that floated in warm butter, which I never ate. Skipping vegetables was easy for me, and honestly, I don't know how I got to be so tall without them. But eating them probably wouldn't have done much for my body. How healthy can overcooked greens soaked in pork fat be? So, you know, this chapter goes on and on and on, and it talks about, you know, the journey of the African to African-American diet, dealing in slavery and our entry into this country, and the tradition of our food today. And again, how cities all over the country are full of food deserts, right? You can't even go anywhere to get fresh food. You know, everything on every block in every corner is processed, packaged, you know, Twinkies and all types of other cakes and candies that last forever, right? I found a French fry under my car seat from McDonald's. It's like 10 years old. It looks the same. Like, it'll never die. It's gonna outlive me, and you know, it's like you know, it's like them dudes in them old rock bands. They live forever, right? So I covered all of these topics in the language that's digestible. The book is doing really well in jails, it's doing really well in high schools, and I'm getting great feedback from it. And I think the main reason is because one, the first person in putting yourself in my shoes as I go through these things works. And then also, you know, there's analysis that comes along with all of these issues that plague our nation in a way that's not corny, right? In a way that's not boring, and it's working. So hopefully you get a chance to check it out. I'm here to talk about it, answer any questions, and you know, we can move forward with our great Busboys and Poets Night.
Questions? Any questions?
Can you read or summarize your portion of the book about capitalism? and blacks?
Sure. Taking requests, like, you know, sing a couple, you know, some old Patti LaBelle song, you know. Wait, Marvin Gaye's from DC, right? We gotta sing some Marvin, man. Black lives do matter to capitalists. Essay briefly touches on the history of how the black body has been valuable to this country since its origin, right? I don't write about slavery a lot in this chapter, but you know, America's been making money off of black people for a long time. The dot-com bubble was great for America, right? Mark Cuban, along with a bunch of other smart people, made fortunes. And what about the housing bubble? Scores of ambitious American speculators flooded their bank accounts before the racket exploded back in 2008. And they all passed go without going to jail. Lately, I've been obsessing over these historic times in our nation's economy and impatiently wondering what's next. Where's the next boom coming from? Or can there even be another boom in these rough economic times? I've researched countless theories, read tons of money magazines, and scoured the internet for savvy trends before a CNN update on Ferguson, Missouri clearly identified the next bubble. Our country's next big get-rich-quick boom, the kill an unarmed black teen bubble. The news update briefly shed light on the huge amounts of money Darren Wilson and George Zimmerman received after murdering innocent black children. Neighborhood security watchman and Florida native Zimmerman raised hundreds of thousands of dollars on his personal website after murdering Trayvon Martin, an unarmed child, making a routine trip to the store for Skittles. I'm from Baltimore City, where people beat murder charges for $5,000 all of the time. So I'm not sure why Zimmerman needed hundreds of thousands. The World Watch in the case brought him instant celebrity status. After his acquittal, Zimmerman hit the interview circuit where he tried to run the price up on Barbara Walters for an up-close exclusive while collecting checks from other networks. Meanwhile, he blew $3,600 on a luxury two-night hotel stay where he took multiple trips to the spa and splurged on a dinner for 10. Where else in the world can a volunteer security guard murder an unarmed child and be rewarded with a luxury hotel stay? Now Zimmerman gets paid to do appearances and sign autographs as a special guest at gun shows, and he sells artwork. Police officer Darren Wilson, the murderer of unarmed 18-year-old Michael Brown, was reportedly paid 6 figures to tell his side of the story to ABC News. The exact dollar amount has not been identified. However, we do know that there was enough money for him to resign from the Ferguson Police Department. On top of the TV money, the Los Angeles Times reported that 2 GoFundMe pages collectively raised over $400,000 on behalf of Wilson, who didn't even need a fundraiser. All of Wilson's legal fees were covered by the police union. So maybe he gets to keep all of those donations to enjoy life. Yes, both of these men were able to gain small fortunes without traces of intelligence or real talent. But don't be fooled. The kill an unarmed black teen bubble isn't for everyone. Allow me to list the criteria. To qualify, you must be white, a police officer or security guard, or just a white guy, heartless, and most important, your victim must be an unarmed black kid, preferably underage. If you shoot a white teen, you could possibly go to jail. Now, as a black man with a heart who probably couldn't qualify to be an officer and wouldn't shoot anyone, I don't meet any of the criteria. However, a large segment of America does. And there's no reason why some enterprising young white man in middle America shouldn't have seen the same CNN report and instantly rip the American flag off the wall in his mom's basement and use it to polish his pistol and shine up his rifle. Of course, all of the better for the young, ambitious young man if he's also training to be a police officer or moonlights as a neighborhood watchman. Through our broken legal system and our damaged media circus, men like Wilson and Zimmerman have found a way to profit off of black lives. They aren't the first and they probably won't be the last. So obviously I don't think people are doing this to make money, but it just shows you how ridiculous it is. How can you know, no job, no real talent, right? Your celebrity is coming from murdering a teenager that you as a grown man couldn't beat in the fist fight. And you get to blow, you get to run a hotel tab up, you get a $3,600 stay. What? How many people here stay in hotel rooms that's $3,600 a night? Right? Right? This feel like not quite Michael Jackson, but definitely not Tito. It's good, right? It's like in the middle, right? It's good. So you know, some of these people get a chance to use their side of the story to brand themselves as like heroes to a segment of America that will subscribe to that and be into that and think that's okay. And that just shows you like the divide that exists in the work that we all must do. Especially if you care about this country, and I take on pretty much like 99% of my emails, people who call into the radio shows, the liberal and Republican ones in general. I don't back down from questions, and I'm not scared to flesh out any of these issues. You know, I'm not, you know, I definitely understand if you had a way, if you're from the opposite side, or if you have a different belief system than me, and you challenge me, and you know, maybe I'll learn, maybe I'll grow, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know, some of these things are just beyond disgusting to me. And if you care about people and if you care about this country, you wouldn't make up excuses for people who sign autographs at gun shows after killing an innocent young person. It's just disgusting.
Can you talk some about, thank you. Can you talk some about the transition that you made from the streets to college, after you left college and went back to the streets, and you talk in your book about how you saw your friends get murdered. And can you talk about how you worked through that when you got to sleep? Okay.
Yeah, so as a young person, I idolized my older brother. I wanted to be just like him. Everything from how he would walk and talk to, you know, even though he had a cool way, he used to spit, and really, like, everything he did was cool. And I wanted to be just like him, and he was a drug dealer. And my whole preteen and teenage life, he would tell me how stupid it would be if I tried to do this, if I tried to do the same thing. You know, he had an eye for that business and that world, and he knew that I wasn't meant to be a part of that, and I had a rare opportunity of taking some of the resources that he had and having a pretty cool childhood and putting myself in a position to be able to get into college. And you know, by the time I turned like 14, 15 years old, I really understood where he was coming from. And a lot of my friends started to sell drugs, and it's a job. It was like the worst thing in the world. You know, dudes my age couldn't really go play basketball, couldn't travel with us. We missed homeroom because they had to sell a certain amount of vials a day, right? They had to sell a certain amount of pills a day. They had quotas and responsibilities and jobs, and it was just like, it went from being something that I thought would be the best thing in the world to the worst thing in the world, and I didn't really want to do it. And I got to school, I got to college, I got accepted to a bunch of nice schools, and around the time I was finishing high school, my older brother was murdered. So I decided to, you know, I was depressed, and I was going through that. So I didn't go straight to college. I stayed home for a while. And when I went to school, it was like culture shock. You know, I thought college was going to be like fun and interesting and like a different world. You know, the television show. I thought college was going to be like a different world, and I didn't go to a HBCU. I went to a predominantly white school, and it was culture shock because when you're living in a place like Baltimore City, it's very easy to not, like, I didn't really know any white people growing up. Housing police and maybe a couple of teachers, but other than that, I never really met a white person. So, you know, I go to this college and it's full of white people, and you know, they're talking about all types of things that I never heard of, and they're wearing boat shoes and they're talking about Degrassi and Systems of a Down, and I'm like, I'm like, what is that? And it goes back to reading and literacy because, I wasn't a reader coming up. So it goes back to reading and literacy and this whole idea of being a communicator, being able to communicate. They didn't know anything about my culture and they didn't try. I didn't know anything about their culture, and I didn't try. I didn't try. It was weird to me, and I think I was a weirdo to them. And I hung around for maybe like a month and a half, and I dropped out. And the only place I really felt comfortable was being in the street and doing what my brother and a lot of my other family members did. So I sold drugs for a while. I worked really hard at it, created a whole lot of opportunities for myself and some other people. And you can be smart and strategic and try to play it as safe as possible, but at the end of the day, it's a murderous industry that doesn't love anybody. And my friends were dropping like flies, and a couple of times, I'm not even going to say it could have been me. I'm going to say it should have been me, and it just wasn't. I was spared. So I didn't go right back to school when I decided to stop selling drugs. I said, you know what? I think I know how to, if I can do good at selling drugs, I can probably do good at selling alcohol, which is like a legal drug. So I saved all my money up. I had my money saved up, and I bought a liquor store. And I said, I'm gonna run the liquor store, and I'm gonna make drinks, and I'm gonna be behind the bar, and I'm gonna hire people, and I'm gonna we want to sell fried fish on Fridays, and I had a whole production, and I worked really hard at that. How I got that loan at that age, beyond me. It was the time, no doc loan and hard money and all of these weird things, all of these little fly-by-night mortgage companies. I was a part of that, but I got the loan and I bought the place and I put some money into it and I fixed it up and I had my little clientele and it was the same thing. We had poker machines. We had poker machines in the bar that paid out. And I'll tell you how this works, because I'm not really sure if they do this in DC or if it's just for a city like Baltimore. But when I first got in the bar, I wasn't making any money and I didn't understand. I was in a center, and it was like a Korean store. It was a bar. It was a liquor store. So let me just say this: in Baltimore, we call them bars, right? It's a liquor store. It's a liquor store in the front. Then you get buzzed into the back where it's like a lounge. You can sit down and relax and all that. So my place was called Stadium Hideaway, and if I was paying, we all bought from the same distribution companies. So if I'm paying like $14, if I'm paying $14 for a bottle of Grey Goose, I'm gonna try to sell it for like $15.50. But the Korean store was paying $14 for it and selling it for $14.10. And I'm like, yo, how are they doing this? Like, I don't get it. Like, I'm never gonna be able to compete with that. So I came up with all these creative ways to, buy a drink, get a drink free, and all of these different things I would do in the lounge to try to make money. And eventually I figured out that the only way places like mine stayed in business were the poker machines. People would, because I was trying to get rid of the machines. When I bought the bar from a woman named Lonnie Boyd, and after we did the paperwork and we went to settlement and everything, I said, Miss Boyd, we got to call that guy and get these machines out of there. She said, nah, baby, keep them, right? She was an older black woman, real gangster, real calm, never too excited, but never too calm, but just, like she had a strong presence. So she said, keep them, and I said, nah, I want to throw parties, and you can't dance with these, because these poker machines, they would take up half this stage, so I called the guy on the machines and said, you got to get them out of there. So the guy came in and said, he said, hey, nice to meet you. I heard you were a very delightful young man. And, I'm fresh out the street, so I'm like, delightful? Like, what you talking about? So he said, we want to leave the machines in the store. And I said, no, I just bought this. I bought this. This is my property. Get them out of here. So he said, I don't think you want to do that, right? And I said, nah, I don't want them. And he said, they're very lucrative. And I said, I don't care. My whole life I saw these machines in every liquor store, but I never really knew why. I just thought, they made money, people put them in there, and they were just something to kill time. I didn't know it was a whole industry behind it. So he said, I tell you what, I will loan you $5,000 for a year if you allow me to keep these machines here. So I said, I don't need a loan for $5,000. I don't want the machines. So he said, okay, I'll tell you what. I'll loan you $5,000 and you don't have to pay me back in a year. You can just pay me out of the machines. And I said, I don't need a loan for $5,000. So he said, okay, I'll tell you what, let's make it 10. So I said, my man, I don't know if you know me, I don't really know you, and I don't really understand what type of games you playing, but get him out of here. So he said, no, just hear me out. I'll loan you $10,000, and you can pay me back out of the machines. You know, I'll take a little bit towards the loan, we cut the money up, it'll be great. You won't even know this, that, and the third, whatever, it's no problem. So I said, nah, man, I'm not with it. So he said, this is a great location. I'll give you $10,000 to keep the machines here. I said, what? So I said, okay, cool. So he runs to the car, he comes back, he writes a check, and I'm like, no. So he said, okay, I understand. So he comes back the next day with the cash, and he breaks it down to me, and he tells me that, you know, they pay out. Keep some cash in a little log in the store. And when people hit, you know, they'll signal you. It's a culture already established, even way before you was born. Don't try to change it. Don't try to get slick. Just follow the rules and you'll make a lot of money. And I didn't believe him. And, you know, I put like $2,000 in the bucket and it was gone. And, you know, I was doing a lot of other things. I was like trying to start my love life and trying not to be a criminal. And I was trying to change my look. I bought khakis. Like I was trying to... Like I had all this other stuff going on, and then, you know, another day I put like $1,000 in there. This is all the first week, and then, you know, the woman who was running the bar at night, she would call me up and say the money's gone, and I would say, no, this is crazy. So the last night I got a phone call, and she said, I need you to bring like $3,000-4,000 down here. I forgot the number, and I said, what? I said, I don't have that kind of money on me. Like I don't have any money on me like that right now. She said, yeah, but this dude hit and he wants to get paid. And I said, hell no. Oh, that old rusty bucket machine, what? And she said, he hit the jackpot. You gotta bring the money down here. So I'm like, yo, let him drink free all night, tell him I get him first thing in the morning because there's no bank open. And, you know, I'm calling the machine guy like, yo, you ripping me off, man, and whatever. So I think my logs added up to like $8,000-9,000, and he opened the machine up, and there was like $35,000 in there. I was like, yo, this is crazy. So first, I'm gassed because I'm like, yo, this is how you make money, and this is how you stay in this business. And then when I started hanging around the store, I met a woman, and she said she made like something like $750, $800 every year when we got the taxes, and she was salty because she put all her money into the machine and she was broke. So I said, this is crazy. So I went to the little box and I just took $200 out and said, here you go, take that, right? You know, and just, you know, we'll get right whenever you get paid, whatever, you know, it's that type of place. I go outside, smoke a cigarette, come back in, she put the 200 in the machine. I said, nah, man. I said, you know what? And then I realized, like, at the end of the day, you know, a dude told me a long time ago when I was a kid that you can really make money doing anything if you're good at it, and I knew I didn't really want to do this. So I didn't want to do that anymore, and that's kind of how I decided to go back to college, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but when I got there, I thought that I wanted to teach or something like that, and I'm doing that now, so it worked out. That's a long answer to a short question. But one thing I would add to that is a lot of times people they ask people things like, why did you get out the street? Or why did you change your life? Or why did you find Jesus? And stuff like that, right? Like, people ask people these questions, and for me, it's no one simple answer for me. It's a combination of things. You know, I was never supposed to be in the street anyway, so I shouldn't have been there. That's why I say I should have been gone, because I shouldn't have been there. Anything that happened to me and the things that happened to me, I deserved it, because I shouldn't have been there. I had, you know, the skill set and enough money saved up to do something different. I was seeing a woman that I was really, really in love with, that we had like a future, and she didn't really, you know, she had sense, right? She had a lot of sense, and she was in college, and I was learning things from her, and we started traveling, and I was exposed to different things outside of my neighborhood. So, you know, I shouldn't have been in the street. I should have rode that wave. And then a change in industry. You know, I grew up selling crack. By the time, you know, we started to hit our height, people stopped smoking crack. Everyone in my age group, you know, we didn't we didn't smoke crack because our father smoked crack and our uncle smoked crack and our mom smoked crack. And they all had like no teeth and they stole video games and they were like at the bottom of the hierarchy within our community. Like it was nothing worse than being a crackhead. So we didn't smoke crack. I know dudes like some of the like most gangster, toughest dudes in the world didn't even touch alcohol or cigarettes because they had drug addicted family members and they saw, you know, the life that came with. So all of these different things, but the ultimate being, I'm not a super money motivated person. I like to survive, I like to help people, I like to travel, I like to pay bills and all that, but I don't need like, you know, I don't need like a dog house that has its own dog house. You know what I mean? Like I don't need $20 cocktails and things like that. Like I don't need that stuff. You know, I'm good with like, you know, the simple cocktails, like happy hour and all that. Like I don't need like all of these extra things, but I'm driven by community work and I think as long as I stay true to my community and the people I work with and the young writers and readers that I engage every day, you know I'm living a meaningful life, and that's cool to me.
Any other questions? All right.
Hey man.
Whoa.
Hey man, thanks for the talk. Can you talk a little bit about your literary and maybe even musical influences? Because for me, as an early 20-something, it's always interesting to talk to people who are a little bit older and hear about their biggest cultural influences from when they were growing up versus and compare them to mine as someone a little bit younger. Thanks.
So I think you know I didn't really read as a young person. I became a reader when I finally got to college. So you know, some of the people that I really look up to as writers, one Charlie Mingus might be my favorite writer. Beneath the Underdog might be my favorite book. Frederick Douglass for sure. I love Junot Diaz. It's a crime if you don't love Toni Morrison. Sherman Alexie, these are my favorite writers now. My biggest influence as far as like art and creativity and storytelling is probably the rapper Nas. So that covers like music and you know, Nas is a storyteller. And I think you know, when I first heard Illmatic changed my life because I didn't need like obviously I love rap music, you know, my neighborhood, whatever. But that was the first time I ever heard a person like tell a story that was just like my neighborhood. It was so clear and so vicious and so vivid, and it was just like made me feel like I was there. My cousin was locked up, and I just remember me and my brother playing it to him over the phone. Like he's like, run it back, and I'm like, yo, no, it's a whole album of this. Like he would have hit New York State of Mind over and over and over again. And I'm like, yo, there's a whole album of this. So that's my biggest influence as a creative person. Other than that, just my neighborhood. Like my neighborhood was full of so many talented storytellers. Like as a kid, I was scared to fall asleep because I thought I would miss something. These dudes will make a trip from here to Eatonville, like Eatonville's this restaurant is on the other side of parking, on the other side of the street. They will make a trip from here to Eatonville sound like the most exciting, most crazy, the most wildest thing in the world, and I come from a history of that. Dudes in my neighborhood telling all types of wild stories, sometimes 100% true, sometimes they stretch things way out of proportion, but it was all funny, it was all fun. And it's tradition, like we have a tradition, just one of the strongest traditions that have been in the black community forever. It's just that of, storytellers. We sit around and we listen to each other tell stories, and I think a lot of my writing derived from that. I'm still working, I work to become a better writer every day. The storytelling is natural, but language and words and trying to create beauty is a journey that I'm going to be on. I think somebody said you don't really get good until you turn 60. I got some work to do.
There are no more questions. Let's give a round of applause, please.